Ah, that's not good.
6,000 movie theaters, 100 million television sets, wires and wireless crisscrossing the hemispheres, semaphore lights and Morse, all telephones ringing at once to connect every mind by its ears to one vast consciousness at this time's apocalypse, everybody waiting for one mind to break through. If you will keep your mind on the image in front of you, which is my face in the camera, or in your TV tube or screen, TV tube, and realize now I'm looking from the other side of directly into like a little black hole, imagining that you were there, and also imagining what would be possible to say that would actually communicate through all the electricity and all the glass and all the dots on the electric screen, so that you're not deceived by the image seen, but that we are all both on the same being, which is you're sitting in your room surrounded by your body looking at a screen, and I'm sitting in my garden with my body with noise of cars outside, so that we're at least conscious of where we are and don't get hypnotized into some false universe of just pure imagery. So that, in other words, you're taking the film in front of you as an image with a grain of salt, as an image rather than as a final reality. Yeah. And so that you don't get deceived by either my projections or the projections of the newscaster who will follow me. Hello, hello, are you the telephone, the operator singing "We Are the Daughters of the Universe"? Get everybody on the line at once. Plug in all ears by loudspeaker, newspeak, secret message, magnetism, shuddering on one note, we, mustache, disc jockeys trembling in mantric excitement, flowers bursting in patterns over the couch, chopping machines descend on the pre-dawn tabloid, the wire services are hysterical and send too much message. I was thinking it might be possible to make some kind of human use of television if that mutual consciousness of observer and observed started talking to each other directly through all the electricity and all the machinery, so there would actually be a little flash of humor and communication finally. And so the weight on my head of being the responsible central image would be taking off, because actually the responsible central image which I am is addressing the responsible central image which you are, because you're there in the flesh. So don't let my image drive your own image out of your mind. So actually, when I talk on television or into a camera generally, I'm trying to imagine the most beautiful person I know watching me for a sign of recognition or some language that will really make sense, and waken the dead image. What millions know and hark to hear, many strange magicians in buildings listening inside their own heads, or clouds over Manhattan Bridge, or strain through music, messages come and blow the cosmic horn to wake every Tyglon and clown circus, sentience throughout the vasting circus, in the name of God, to pick up the telephone and call the networks announcing suchness that I am.
One of the things which you have to say about Ginsberg is that has a very considerable political magnetism, that he is the Fidel Castro among poets, and that it's been the confrontation with the personality which has mattered to a great many people.
My name is Allen Ginsberg. I was born 41 years ago on the other side of the planet in Newark, New Jersey. Grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, which is 13 miles from the big city of New York. So I used to run into New York all the time and go to the Museum of Natural History to see the Mayan sculptures. My mother went mad, died in a bug house in New York State. I went to Columbia College, studied law, pre-law, and economics, wrote poetry. Met some literary friends there when I was 20, William Burroughs and Jack Kerouac. Worked for a long while in marketing research, doing statistical work, determining what kind of minds you have, so that you will buy soap or toothpaste or not wear beards, or what kind of razor blades you'll use. Quit that to write poetry and live with a friend named Peter Orlovsky, who I've lived with for the last 15 years. My sex life is primarily homosexual, though I've been making it with young ladies for the last few years. My work at the moment is writing poetry. and become famous. Alan is a lovely person, a person who, in a certain way, is not a poet yet, might become a poet. What he is trying to do is, in his recent phase, the last 15 years anyway, is revolve a kind of bardic role for the poet as a folk speaker for a group. And this is very beautiful. He serves as a catalyst whereby people get to touch one another. And this is done without brutality, with an outpouring of affection. That is to say, his effort is a beautiful one, and I trust he will grow into adequacy to perform it.
In America, there are a lot of people, a lot of college kids who have his picture on the wall, but they've never read his works.
Yeah.
And I see this as a danger myself. It's the typical American system of, if anyone is a threat to your society, you make him into a star. Because as soon as someone is elevated to the star position, they're in a box, they have a label on them, and the public only expects stars to make statements about their particular field. And someone like Alan has been made into a flower person, you know, and he talks for them rather than for humanity, which is the big danger. You know, he shouldn't be labeled as that.
Okay, so what do we got? Shocking! This was Hyde Park on Sunday afternoon. The sketch says, that's their version. So what we got is a young cat, maybe, with a CND thing over here. In what? In marking pencils?
Yeah, probably. Written too.
Presumably taking a shot of hard drugs rather than soft drugs. Well, the whole point of the thing was soft drugs, not hard drugs. But they dragged in somebody, presumably, or they found somebody. So a picture like this has to be done in cooperation with the photographer, which means that they got somebody to cooperate to set up this picture, which means that this is not what happened, but this is what the sketch made happen. In other words, the sketch made news, made the event, made the history, and in doing this ignored the entire situation, which I think you have photographs of, actual photographs of, which was people sitting around chanting and having a picnic in the park and registering public vibrations that there should be a change in the laws, which everybody sort of generally agrees who knows anything about. So all politics, all history, is then the selection of images.
Business, yeah.
In that sense, Olson says, now that everybody can select their own images because everybody's on to the fact that language is controlling us and that images are being used to control people on a massive electronic scale. As that consciousness wakens, people get detached and begin cutting out of the imagery that's planted in their brains, to which they're continually being conditioned, so that anybody's free to interpret history as he actually sees it, and that history then becomes what actually happens to us, rather than what we are told is happening.
This is a Congress, the Dialectics of Liberation, which Ginsberg is at. Everyone's sitting here just telling everyone how the ship is going down. It's sinking. There's nothing we can do. There is no autonomy today. Well, he has his autonomy, he has his own way of acting out what has to be acted out, and it's quite different from everyone else. Now his bit is, he's got to India, mainly, and what he talks about is psychopolitics. That's the main thing. He's not so much a poet anymore, he's a psychopolitician. So that his idea is, if you want to, Stokely Carmichael, you see, tried to pour shit all over the hippies the other day, and he said, yeah, they're okay. If they want to go up and stand and throw flowers in front of the police whilst they're gunning us down, that's fine by me. And Ginsberg said, precisely, okay, we'll go do that.
All right, I'd like to introduce tonight's speakers to you. On my left, Ronald Lane, well-known psychoanalyst and writer. On my right, Stokely Carmichael, leader of Black Power, ex-chairman of SNCC. Next, Stokely is Allen Ginsberg, poet, who will open the meeting. On the extreme right is Emmett Grogan, from a free autonomous group in San Francisco called the Diggers. I leave you to their mercy.
Propositions are difficult. I don't have a completed proposition. I've heard some. The best experience I have had has been with the younger people in America and some few of my own generation who have had to confront the mass hallucination or style of consciousness or mode of consciousness into which we were born, and had some kind of mental breakthrough which clarified not only the nature of our own identity, which was also swept under by the mechanical society, but also the nature of others' identities as being the same as our own, that we are all one, and also the nature of the entire universe, perhaps, as what is very perplexingly a total illusion or maya. That is not necessarily to preclude our taking detached action within the situation. The most detached action that I have seen taken within the situation is the use of LSD by the younger people for the purpose of demystifying their own consciousness and arriving at some sort of common meet universe where they are sitting with Flowers, ourselves, and Mr. Carmichael, and thus being able to begin to relate as self to common self. Where this leads in terms of practical action, we have very small community groups in San Francisco, in New York, beginning to leave the money wheel and also beginning to leave the hallucination wheel of the media, beginning to form small cooperatives, tribal units, societies of their own, beginning to share money or do without money, beginning to put on mass entertainment in the parks to raise the general awareness, not love power, but awareness power of their contemporaries, and then beginning to move in on authority with those weapons which have been called flower power. Flower power being euphemistic for a simple, calm, tranquil equilibrium, non-violent, as far as possible, as far as the self can be controlled so that it can relate to other selves in disguise, including the police. Carmichael, earlier in the week, made a proposition which I thought was possible, though I don't think he thought it was possible, that if the hippies in America were able to confront the police with flowers in Newark, then he would be concerned with that as a political tactic. I think that, for my own inspiration, for my own desire, is the one area where I do feel desire for practical action.
I was thinking about Ginsberg, that what he says is solely concerned with himself. He's no longer worried about society outside, except as a game that he plays.
Depends what you call his self. The self that he takes himself to have arrived at is a universal self of which he, Allen Ginsberg, is but one fragment. So I don't think he's concerned about his individual fragment to the exclusion of the rest of the cosmos, and he's arrived at the traditional Buddhistic position that you only multiply the violence you're seeking to mitigate by any act of violence that would attempt to diminish it.
One simple method of stabilizing the self in the middle of the body is very simple belly breathing, so that, like, if you put your hands like that, which is a Soto Zen method of balancing the hands, thumbs together, hands just put together, and breathe in your lower abdomen, right here, slowly, like a baby breathes, with the belly hung out, and the belly wall out. You can breathe deeply enough to sigh. And when you sigh, a lot of anxiety is sighed out that way. Your attention will be paid there inside your body, and it won't be paid to satanic forces going on outside, or the end of the world, which may be threatening, or your best friend flipping out in New York on amphetamine and breaking all the windows and winding up in Bellevue. If you set up incense, such as this, it smells sweet and covers your sense of smell. If you set up a picture or a flower, a picture of Krishna or a flower or any image that you enjoy looking at, that you feel safe with, that you feel familiar with, that'll cover your sight. If you perform mudras, that's hand gestures, such as this, which is a gesture of offering, and if you go through a ritual like that, composed of incense, pictures, mantras, and mudras, and breathing, you're covering all of your senses in putting them, that is, keeping each one checked out, so to speak, into a safe place, and collecting your whole body in one spot where you're familiar already and you know that Frankenstein isn't going to come and get you. So, like a little 5-minute ritual like that, or 10-minute ritual, is very good to, as a form of meditation while you're going up on a psychedelic. Also, a good place to come back to at any point during a trip when you want a familiar, simple place to lay your body again. I find I don't need them anymore anyway, because actually what I've been doing is going out into country places where there's ocean, one mountain, where there's giant washes of fog lapping into a valley, so that I could see like the atmosphere of the earth moving very gently and slowly, and that was enough of a place to put my mind for meditation, to keep me safe still in nature and not out into my own fantasy or fear, death or whatever that would bug you if you're high. Even if LSD disappeared and all the beards and all the hair disappeared, I think the awareness would spread because the actual heavy metal conditions are at a dead end. Nobody, in other words, is it LSD that's turning on American youth, or is it also the practical problem of having to face going to Vietnam? There's a whole series of mantras which you can get and check out in a book called the Hevajra Tantra. And the Hevajra Tantra has a whole chapter on mantras. Mantras for the destruction of a city, mantras for the causing a city to tremble. I think it's Om Kacha Tata Papa Sasvaha. But you'd have to hear it pronounced properly to know how to use it. And I think you have to pronounce it something like 10 million times before it's effective. They have also a mantra for purifying a site, which I do use. Gary Schreider, I use that, in fact, as to circumambulate the San Francisco Polo Ground for the first human being, to purify a site and drive out demons. Raksha is a demon, I guess. Om Raksha. So you can say, actually, Raksha, come on back. Calm down, Raksha. Pet is a Tibetan, I think it's a Tibetan mantra, and Pet is a spitting out of the force.
Yeah.
Svaha is an address to female deities. There's a mantra which is Boom Boom Mahadev, which is usually shouted. Boom Boom Mahadev! With as much force as will break the consciousness of the moment and waken up the body. The chanted mantra to Shiva, which is good for accompanying pot smoking. Put that there. Put your hands there. Right, and then just pull that. Keep strong. Strongly. Hari Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Hari Om. The question was, if I were living in a situation where I had not enough to eat and not enough clothes and presumably were in jail, maybe, or I got the mercy of white power, would I be able to write my poetry? And I say, I have no idea, was my answer. The reason the hippies have taken on the beads, appurtenances, music of shamanistic groups, of ecstatic trance state types, is because they're beginning to explore for the first time the universe of consciousness of other cultures beside their own.
Mr. Ginsburg, I don't know much about the hippie movement, but I would like to beg to differ with you. I think the reason most of the hippies do that is because they're confused little kids who run away from home and will return to their culture within a year or two.
There's no culture to return to.
Before I can find my individual self, I must find my group culture, obviously.
But we don't have a viable group culture, so we're in the same boat in that sense.
Not for me. I'm going to fight for me in a broader sense for other people.
We are surrounded by violence. The violence is falling on him, on the blacks. It's also, however, falling on all of us in the sense that it has been for a long time falling on the whites also in America, also in Russia.
But coming down from generalities to specific techniques such as hippies shaking hands with policemen, and as they do, after the hand's been taken, putting another hand round and stroking the back of the neck. Well, that's things like this, going out in the street with masks, changing the way one dresses, changing the way one walks, challenging minute rules of etiquette, of conduct in all respects in public.
Negroes rioting in Newark, Detroit, guerrilla activity in South America, China, wherever it is, it's just sort of all part of the same global eruption.
Apparently.
Is this true, do you think?
Well, you said so.
Yeah.
I don't know. How the fuck would I know?
Do you think this is like the end of the cycle in every sort of cultural, evolutionary, human sense? And something quite new and radically different has to emerge now?
I don't know.
Great.
I have no idea anymore. It's all too confusing. Peter Orlovsky's in New York flipping out. That's what's on my mind. I got a letter
Yeah.
that all the windows in my house were smashed and he was in Bellevue. So I have no idea what's happening. I'm just trying to figure out what to do to get him here. That's why I'm really not in very much of a mood to make movies.
I think Alan is no really danger to society as such, in that he is concerned with preserving many elements of the American society. He's, in fact, very American, capital A.
Yeah.
Carmichael is not concerned with preserving the society because he's been excluded from it. His problem, and his people's problem, is a problem more of exclusion than exploitation. This is one of the basic fallacies in Carmichael's own arguments. He thinks of it as a Marxist situation, which it isn't really.
Well, the crux always, the crux always boils down to whether the power structure, the powers that be, is a real thing, or whether the whole inertia of everything is so strong that it will be impossible to make changes without violence. what everybody, the revolutionary activist groups of the moment are saying is that, including Burroughs the other night, last night, because we were talking about it with Michael X, is that everything is so impacted and stiff that only violence will change it. And only some kind of violence will make people give up what they are grasping, which is the old Marxian thing about class struggle. I don't think that's true ultimately, actually. It may work out that that's the way it's going to work out now, but I don't think, but with more imagination, I don't think it's inevitable. I don't think history is inevitable in that way. So it would require like a real supreme, delightful consciousness on the part of the revolutionaries to make another tactics, which is so fantastic in terms of cutting the old lines of association, cutting the old habit patterns, providing an open circus for everybody to join in, that it will be possible for everybody to adjust. Otherwise, maybe it is only violence.
What are you doing now in your poetry? What areas are you moving into?
Scribbling. That's all. And what it is traveling around the United States, using a tape recorder, a Uher, in a Volkswagen with Peter at the wheel, and I'm in the back at a table because it's a camper. Just including all the poignant data that come to my attention. The car radio, whatever newspapers are lying around in the car, the news broadcast coming through, the landscape through the window, the thoughts going on inside my head, portions of the conversations in the car, and so I do have to select, because otherwise you get everything. Then you couldn't put it on a page. But I'm still working, abstracting it to a page. Though probably the actual sound tapes are more interesting than the page himself.
Yeah.
I was talking to McCartney the other day, like what was his conception of the nature of things as it was turning out. And he said something real simple, which coming from him is like real beautiful, which is we are all one. You don't smoke?
Yes.
You do? So you fuck yourself up smoking, but you don't want it. Smoking's worse than anything else. Actually, I gotta get my cigarettes. I'll be right back. I need to get my cigarettes. I'm hooked. You go to school?
Yeah.
You been in love?
No.
Your parents have money?
No.
What does your father do?
Oh, he's an insurance officer.
You get along with him?
Yeah.
My father's 71 now. He's coming to London this 2 weeks from now. And I'm going to take him around for the first time in his life. He's never been here. Guru on Primrose Hill. It is the moon that disappears. It's the stars that hide, not I. It's the city that vanishes. I stay with my forgotten shoes, with my invisible stocking. It's the call of a bell.